Thank you very much. Yeah. We'd like everyone to welcome Dr. Richard Mccullough, who is our next guest here today. And we've gone through the preliminary. I think Dr. Mccullough knows the program here, how we're going to operate, and so I'm going to go ahead and start if I can find my notes. It's all on me. Let's see here if I can. And I can't find my notes, but I know they are here. Well, anyway, so much for have it here. So, well, good afternoon, Dr. Mccullough. Thank you for joining us today. It's very special having you here with us. We're very excited about your candidacy and are eager to learn about you. By way of introduction, please take a few minutes to tell us about yourself professionally and personally, and why at this point in your career you're interested in becoming the president of Florida State University. And along with that, what interests you most about the university and the position?
Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you to the committee. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's really an honor to be considered. Thank you very much. So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and why FSU and why I'm interested. First of all, I grew up of modest means. My father was a salesman, lost his job very early in life, and so, I had to help out with paper route and working in pizza parlors and things like that. And over the years, I realized as I got a little bit older that, education was a pathway forward for me to try to, rise up and maybe have a little bit less of a struggled life than my parents did. So I was able, because of, affordable public universities, to be able to do that, because, I was able to work my way through college at Eastfield Community College, which is supported by the state of Texas, where, every semester was about $50 a semester, and I was able to, pay for that myself. And then I went to the University of Texas at Dallas, again, public university, and without those opportunities, I wouldn't have been able to get where I am today. So even though I'm from private universities, it's because of my public education is really how I was able, to get to where I am. And it goes without saying, but it's important to note that the professors that are dedicated to public universities, who are mentors, are the ones that really make a difference for students. And that transformed my life, no doubt about it. So I am really, if you ask why am I interested in Florida State, that's because I want to be part of helping students and help them to transform their lives. That's a driving force for me. It's really personal. So, in my position at Harvard University, I'm very fortunate. I get contacted very often about, positions like this one, and I don't usually pursue them because they're usually not of interest to me. But when I looked at Florida State, and I know about Florida State, it generated tremendous excitement because I see it as a huge opportunity. Not only for the leadership that I could bring, but for the university itself. The rise and reputation and rankings, the student success that you've already enjoyed, leadership and diversity. There's just so many, it's just a wonderful foundation to build from. But how could I, with a team of people at Florida State, make a difference? That's sort of a key question. And that really would have to be with building the strength among the academic disciplines at Florida State. There's a tremendous opportunity to do that. Not just rise in rankings, but rise in reputation. And there's tremendous opportunity there. Build the research portfolio. It's clearly an area where I think you have tremendous opportunity, which of course I can help a lot in that area. And then, building partnerships with corporations and other people, that will be really important to help the university move forward. But even more important is, Florida State wants to, strives to be one of the most innovative entrepreneurial universities around. You have a college of entrepreneurship, the partnership with the business school. The stage is set for you to really be a leader in this area. But for somebody like me, and I see opportunity there, and I think that really excites me. There's also opportunity in the undergraduate population. If you think about the undergraduate rankings and reputation, there's opportunities to continue the rise in SATs. There's honors college that you have. I think they've been tremendously successful there. Drive down class size, continue to drive up graduation rates through, just-in-time advising and some of the programs like You Haven't Cares, which is an amazing program. But I think the key point, and the last one I'll make, is that, all of my experiences at Carnegie Mellon and Harvard have brought me here today. And I feel like this is calling me, and I'm very excited. I know that we together could make a big difference here. And, I'd be a first-time president, and the first-time presidents have a fire in their belly, not to say anything about people that have been presidents, but I have a fire in the belly to come in and make a difference. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We're going to have various people on the search committee ask questions. So the second question is from Dr. Paraway.
Thank you. First of all, welcome to Florida State, Dr. McCullough.
Thank you.
Florida State University was recently recognized, and we've joined the top 20 universities, public universities in the country. We're excited about that as faculty and students. Everyone's excited about that. But we've also heard that there might be ways that we could even get into maybe the top 10. And do you see any major obstacles in FSU's way to get there? And if you do think we could get there, how long do you think it might take? And what are the steps you would take to ensure we did get in the top 10?
That's a great question. That was also one of the things that I recognized immediately. If you look at the top 20 public universities, there's only 3 universities in the top 20 public universities that are not in the AAU. Florida State's one of them. One of them is William & Mary. William & Mary is not getting in the AAU. Because it's a teaching college, essentially. It's the state, again, there's a foundation already laid for you to be in the AAU. You just have to find the pathway to get there. And it's very clear the way that happens. You need to be one of the leaders in research. You have to have research expenditures that are, on the order of what AAU research-intensive universities have. You have $250 million in research expenditures now. That should be probably $500 million. If you look at your research expenditures, you raise more money in research funding from the NSF than you do from the NIH. That is a really imbalance relative to what other universities do. So it's a tremendous opportunity in the life sciences, not only just hard life sciences, but also in the computational life sciences to make a difference here. And Florida State has a rich tradition in the sciences. I mean, it's well known to be amazing physics and chemistry and multiple Nobel Prizes. So this is it's not as if you're trying to build off a reputation that you don't already have. So that would be focusing on that, increasing the amount of research dollars coming in. The faculty reputation is already strong and the student reputation is always strong. There's always room to grow and hire great people and continue with that. The faculty awards, if you look at the details, you have a lot of faculty awards, a lot of people in the academy, National Academy, and award-winning faculty. And if you compare it to other AAU universities, which I did, that's not an area. That was one of the areas I thought I was a little worried about. Maybe you don't have as many award-winning faculty, but it turns out you have more than many of the AAU universities already. But I think there's 2 other issues that we really have to focus on. And one is, it's in the area of innovation and entrepreneurship and economic development, workforce development, jobs, and making an impact, and make sure your students are making an impact in that area. Again, I keep saying this, the stage is set, the foundation is laid, but for someone like me that built an innovation ecosystem and took Carnegie Mellon from 2 startups a year to 14, and Harvard from 8 to 18, and have been, in charge of all of entrepreneurship at Harvard and attracted corporate partnerships at Carnegie Mellon, Apple, Google, Disney, et cetera, because we had so many startups, it brought jobs into Pittsburgh, thousands of jobs. So this is the pathway for workforce development and economic development. And partnering with the state and the city, these are not difficult things to sell to state and local politicians. I joke, but they know one thing, and that's creating jobs. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to do that going forward. So I think the other one is that Florida State needs to tell its story a little bit stronger, be a little bit bolder, not shy about all the success that you've already realized. And so those are the kinds of things that I think I would bring to the table. Of course, working with the faculty, deans, provosts, the board, those are the things that I would do.
Along that line, Chairman Burr, you had a question we were talking about earlier that sort of fits into the...
It does, and thank you for being here, Dr. McCullough. And I think in answering that question, you focus on AAU, but maybe that's synonymous with top 10. You're sort of putting those together, so it's sort of the same field of achievement that you might have to get us there. Because we were going to ask you a question about AAU, how to get there, but I think I just heard a combined answer, and they seem to go together for those, so we'll deal with that. But you talked about creating jobs. I was at a conference yesterday of our state business leaders. It's called Council 100. We had 7 of our university presidents. President Thrasher was there along with 6 others, and talking about meeting the needs of the employers, and not only the needs of today, but the needs of tomorrow. So talk to us about how you do that. What are ways that we can make sure that we're delivering job-ready graduates? And then talk more about the job creation, because I think you have you touched on that briefly, but spend more time talking about your experiences with startups and the entrepreneurship and the incubators you've been with, because I think that's...
Thank you, Ed. I'll just, one sentence about the top 10. I think I told you when we spoke that one of my good friends is, he's at a university that's ranked in the top 8. My goal would be to be one better than him. So I would be driven by that as a competitive person, just to answer that question. On workforce development, I have a lot of experience in this. When I was at Carnegie Mellon, we worked with mainly the state on economic development. So we worked with the legislature, but mainly with the governor. We mainly worked with the governor. We had a lot of support from the governor. We helped to raise money for a collaborative innovation center building when we were there. And that's the building that we housed all of these companies that we attracted into Pittsburgh. In addition to that, we got a lot of support for startup companies. Students nowadays, you may know, their first job is often starting a company. And this creates jobs. And so, jobs that are supported by risk capital, but also by loans and various programs at the state. And so promoting those kinds of programs at the state, not only in the legislature, different state governments have different ways of doing it. In Pennsylvania, it was the state government. In the governor's office. In Massachusetts, it's not only the governor's office, but they have secretaries of economic development, and then they have sort of mass life sciences and things like that, places that you can go to help support job creation. And so we work with them very closely. So I'm helping to building the Center for Advanced Biological Innovation and Manufacturing. It's a $100 million project to build a manufacturing innovation center on biological medicines in Boston, and we're working hand in hand with the state on developing a program in workforce development to try to create not only high-level jobs, but jobs for technician, good jobs for people that could learn through retraining. We have partnerships with. We're going to develop this partnership with MIT and Worcester Polytech to try to, and community colleges, to try to create that pathway into this center as a place for workforce development. So. Very important and critical going forward. This is what we do, and it's great for the students. This is, we're trying to get students jobs after all, but it's also good for the community.
How about meeting workforce needs? And that's job creation. how do you go about meeting the workforce needs of current employers today and tomorrow?
That's a great question. That is one that I think, and this is my opinion, I don't think universities, I think universities need to do a better job here. Because I think there needs to be more partnership with the companies to try to understand what are their needs. Often universities, we train students in the way that we as professors believe that they should be trained. But that doesn't necessarily line up with what the needs are in industry. And so we've done a little of this, trying to understand, meeting with corporate partners and corporate leaders and trying to understand what are the skills that you're looking for. Working in diverse teams, analytical skills, skills about sort of data, understanding data, things like that are the kinds of things that are emerging going forward, as well as soft skills, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. Hall.
Thank you for being here, Dr. McCullough. As you know, fundraising is an important aspect of the president position and will play a critical role in the further development of the university. What experience have you had in working with individual donors, foundations, and corporations? Building the endowment in particular will be key to the institution's success. Please share your experience in building and managing an endowment.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Appreciate that. Well, I'm a highly experienced fundraiser, but I think more importantly, I love fundraising. And I'll tell you why I love fundraising, because it's about meeting people and establishing those relationships. And the people that you meet are incredibly interesting. And at the end of the day, they know why you're there. And they're expecting you to work with them. And I found, surprisingly, when I first learned how to, got involved in fundraising, that often the people who give money to the universities want to do this as a source of pride that they had ownership for these programs. And so I found that it's been a really successful way of doing this is just simply through developing, relationships with people, which I love doing anyway. So it's kind of pretty straightforward. I have, when I was at Carnegie Mellon, I wrote the research strategic plan there, and I helped develop those into the campaign themes for the $1 billion campaign. I was very involved in helping to raise money at Carnegie Mellon. I probably was involved in raising about half of the money in the capital campaign. I raised multiple 6- and 7-figure gifts myself for lots of programs, including ones in entrepreneurship and the sciences. And at Harvard, I've been also very involved in raising money. I lead corporate and foundation fundraising at the university, which was assigned to me because of my fundraising experience. And I've increased corporate fundraising by over 100%, foundation fundraising over 50%. At Harvard, you have to understand that I didn't do that. I helped to do that because it's a big place, and of course I'm involved in creating programs that help to do this, but I'm usually involved in lots of these conversations going forward. I have been personally involved in gifts, about $75 million in gifts, and then I've been involved in teams to raise another $550 million that we've raised for various centers at Harvard. So. And for the Center for Biological Innovation and Manufacturing, I pretty much raised all the money for that. That's about $77 million. So I've been involved in raising money at all levels. I'm involved in with the President Provost, we're in leading the corporate fundraising with some sort of Fortune 20 companies right now. We're looking at very large gifts from them, and helping to support the president on big gifts and sort of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and climate change, and things like that. So I've done a lot of it going forward, and I enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ms. Blake Hedges.
In order to continue to meet its aspirations, FSU will need to dramatically increase its research productivity and increase its effectiveness in recruiting and retaining top-tier students. Based on your experience, what are the 3 to 4 challenges impacting the recruitment and retention of exceptional students, and how have you addressed each at your current and former institutions? In addition, please comment on your experience in working with federal agencies to obtain research grants and how you could use that experience to help FSU.
Great, thank you very much for the question. I think on the student question, it's important. At universities, we are faculty, the staff, the board, we're here for the students. I mean, this is all about the students, you know? We're trying to create excellence for the students, you know? Of course, there's research and making great discoveries. That's super important as well. But at the end of the day, most people are professors because of the love for education and the students. And so driving and creating that atmosphere of excellence really attracts students because they want to be associated with a place that has tremendous pride. You know, Florida State is a place with tremendous pride already. It's not, you know, it's not something you have to create, you know, and it's a really valuable asset to the university. And I think just doing more of what you're doing is really what's important. Making sure that, you know, you're engaged with the students in a strong way, making sure that you ensure their success at every level. And they have a good time, and that we provide a fun place, but a place that you go away with where you can do well for yourself when you get out of here as a leader. And so that will be important going forward. On the research question, I mean, I have a lot of experience in raising money for research. I've created multiple programs over the year, both at Carnegie Mellon and at Harvard, structural biology, data science. It helped us spur on creating a new department in the med school, Harvard Quantum Initiative, climate change. I've been seeding programs in the education school and design that's improved our performance in global research, and invested in the social sciences. So all of these building of centers and hiring great faculty and really building these programs up help to create an atmosphere that just naturally leads to increases in research funding at the university. You know, we've, under my leadership, I mean, Harvard's research expenditures have risen $100 million. And in addition to that, I found that we underreport how much we actually invest internally in research that gets reported in these NSF surveys. And the combination of those two successes have led to Harvard going from 18 to 9 in research funding over the years. So it's an area I'm very comfortable with, and I've got a tremendous amount of experience working with the federal agencies at all levels, and corporate research and foundation research, and so something that I would love to bring together.
Our next question is Ms. Birmingham.
Hello. The university has its eyes set on becoming a member of the American Association of Universities. I believe you touched on AAU a bit already, but so I want to ask, what is your experience in working with them? Rather, I will ask, what plans would you implement to help FSU reach the AAU, and what areas need the most focus?
Yeah, again, I think the most focus is really on three things. One is increasing the research funding at the university. I think will be critical to get to the AAU. I think doing a better job of telling the story of the success that has already occurred at Florida State. Making sure that student success and the educational programs are leading. And again, this idea of innovation, entrepreneurship, and workforce development, economic development is something they look for with the AAU. I've been at Carnegie Mellon and Harvard, and they're both AAU universities, so I've been a member of you know, the meetings with the AAU. I know all the people at the AAU already. I'm usually representative at many of these meetings, including Tech Transfer Committee at AAU. I was the only VPR at private universities to be on that. So, and I'm on, you know, I get lots of calls from them very often to help out. So I know the people, and I have a good feel for what it takes to get a place like Florida State there. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. But the research research is where there's a gap, because you can look at other universities that are not as good as Florida State that have $200 million in research funding. And so that's a place that sort of sticks out, as if you were looking at your portfolio, you'd say, okay, that's an area of weakness. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ms. Gibbs.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Please tell us about your experiences working with and addressing the needs of a culturally diverse and ethnically diverse population of students, faculty, and staff. What initiatives have you employed to support these groups and promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and what challenges have you encountered along the way?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much. First of all, I am really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you might ask, why? Why are you passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion? I think it's because I grew up of modest means, and it was not an easy pathway for me to get to achieve social mobility. And I see that, as an opportunity for me to help in that regard. I've been involved in promoting diversity for quite a long time, especially as department head and as a dean. When I was dean, I hired 20 of the faculty were women of the 40 people that we hired. So I was really pushed that hard as the dean. I made sure in every search that there had to be somebody that we interviewed that was an underrepresented minority or woman going forward, and if they didn't, I would send them back to the drawing board. So, because there are good candidates there. But one of the challenges that I saw in this, and it's the challenge that people talk about all the time, is, they say, Rick, it's hard to hire faculty, underrepresented minorities, Black, African American, Latinx, because the pipeline is an issue. And so I started working just individually on the pipeline. I started recruiting African American students, graduate students, and postdocs into my lab. As postdocs, I would only take African American students. I tried to take predominantly women into my lab. And then I would try to help them and mentor them to get them to the jobs that they wanted to, particularly in academics, because I think in academics they can make a huge difference. I had a postdoc that identified she's a professor now, and she wanted to go to a historically Black college or university to get a job, which of course is amazing, but I wanted her to go to a non-traditional HBCU because I thought that in that way she could even make a larger difference. And she ended up going to Iowa State, and now she's at BU. And, she's made a tremendous difference going forward. So, and then I institutionalized that approach with a friend of mine from MIT, and we co-created something called the Future Faculty Workshop, Diverse Leaders of Tomorrow. So we bring in about 30 to 50 graduate students, postdocs that want to get an academic job. So I'm working on the pipeline. And it was mainly in materials and chemistry and biology, but it was the pipeline nonetheless. And then we try to teach them sort of the secret handshakes of how to get an academic job because, it's difficult when you go into these situations. What do you do if somebody treats you in a poor way? Or, how do you, what if you don't drink and you go out to dinner and everybody's drinking? It's all these sort of simple things. How do you answer questions about mentoring students and et cetera? And so it's a 3-day, 2.5-day workshop. I raised the money for the workshop for many years to fund it, eventually taken over by the NSF. The NSF now funds it. And it's been going for 15 years. We placed 50 underrepresented minorities in academic jobs. So I think it's been a tremendous success. And I haven't even been in the last few years because we have so many great mentors who are so enthusiastic about running it that I think it's been a real success. My reputation is one that, I'm the most senior leader on the Provost Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. And I think, diversity equals excellence. And we're about excellence in universities. And there's a Hanover study that came out not very long ago. They interviewed 400 employers, and they asked them, what are you looking for in students? And one of the top things they mentioned was they wanted students that could work in diverse teams. And so we owe it to our students, and we have a greater calling in life to do these sort of things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Trustee Mateer.
As you know, FSU has a vibrant Division I athletics program that captures the attention of alumni, current students, and the nation. Tell us about your experience working with Division I or other athletic programs. We are particularly interested in learning your approach to balancing the competing interests in advancing academic excellence and fostering new research against the needs of a thriving athletic program.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, I'm a huge sports fan to start off with. I mean, I'm already excited about the possibility of the women's soccer team going to the national championship here. You know, I'm already starting to be invested in what's going on. The rise in the basketball team, I watched them in the Sweet 16. I was hoping they'd make a few more threes and free throws, and then they, you know, I think it'd be in the lead out. So the program is really rising. I see the momentum in the baseball team. Women's softball is great, and of course, storied tradition of the football team here is one to get back to a national championship is going to be critical. I hear we have hopefully we have a new offensive lineman come from Notre Dame, so maybe that will help shore things up a bit. You know, but I think there's 2 points to make here, and that is that, you know, again, it's back to this, FSU has this pride, and this pride makes athletics a precious resource for the university. And, you know, one of the things that's really important about promoting student athletes is the success of the student athletes are critical to the university. And I'll tell you why. I don't know how many people think about this. Student athletes are often natural leaders. They're super competitive people. And they often become among your most successful alumni. And we see this over and over at Harvard and other universities I've been, you know, involved with. Admissions loves, you know, really driven athletes, good student athletes. And if you look around at the board, you'll see it's peppered with very successful former student athletes that are very successful. So I think that's really important. These are the exact students that you want at a university. Not all of them, but I mean, you definitely want some folks that are really driven that way. So I think it's really important. I think the other thing to bring up is that, you know, an athletic program, it's you need to provide leadership. You need to be involved. You need to be engaged. You need to be working, you know, with your athletic directors in the same way you might work with your deans, coaches like department heads. You got to be involved, know what's going on. You know, you can't just ignore them and hope everything's going to be okay. And, you know, make sure that things are sort of going in the way of the tradition of FSU, where, you know, the balance between academics and success going forward. I think the university's done a great job at that. And I would be, you know, supporting that going forward for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Does anyone, before I go to the last question here, does anyone have any follow-up questions that you'd like to ask? Any add-ons? I've got a couple, but I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to answer the questions. One of the things that I've talked to many people about is the change in not only higher education, but business and our social lives and everything. But especially now as we hopefully are exiting the pandemic, that has brought change, great change for the past year. A lot of change going forward. Things aren't going to always be back as they were. What do you see as the trends in higher education, and especially as we exit a pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, as a lot of people have said, the pandemic has accelerated the future. I think we've learned some things from the pandemic that are very useful. I think the idea that professors stand at a lectern as they did in 0 AD and talk at the class, and then we do that today in the same way, it's not necessarily the optimal way to teach, probably. And I think, you know, we've learned that online learning is something that has a place in education. The fact that you videotape the lectures, the students can go back and look at these these lectures going forward. I think it's really important. And I think we underestimate often as professors the impact on how we teach and how the students learn. And connecting the two is something that I think universities are struggling a little bit with, but I think the pandemic actually helped us a lot in doing so. We had we're a leader in something called the flipped classroom, where you videotape all the lectures and you bring the students into the class, they work problems together in teams, and then they go away and want the lectures on their own. And we surveyed the students, and the students said, we asked them if they liked the flipped classroom, and they did not. And it was a shock, because we thought this was a great innovation. And it turns out the reason they don't like it is because they don't like to go to class. And so, you know, that's part of the challenge, is that we need to know our customers in some sense. And online learning, taping, videotaping, providing those resources for the students is important. And we learned a lot about hybrid teaching going forward. I think is really important. And of course, the workplace, we learned a lot about, you know, we don't always have to be in our offices working, and sometimes we could be more efficient by not being there, and that may, you know, produce ways of, you know, lowering space cost and things like that. Maybe it will, you know, work-life balance and things like that might get better. So there's still challenges, because the vulnerability of the business model, you know, executive education, overweight dependence on executive education and tuition and things like that, you know, boy, that really hurt a lot of universities going forward. So just reassessing, I think, the business model of the university, making sure that you have a balanced portfolio going forward, I think will be important.
Lots of changes. You know, one of the things that I face in our business, and as we've exited the pandemic, that we're really looking hard at is what are the things that we ought to own versus what are the things that we ought to maybe even outsource. Some of the educational things that we do. We have all manner of professions in our business. And you know, if you're a CPA, you got to take those credit hours every year you get to keep your license. And as we've begun moving into other areas like that, it seems like that's something that has really resonated with our associates, our employees, the idea of investing in them. It's not CPE hours, it's not required, but it may be required for them to continue to do their job well. What do you see there? Are you at Harvard? I mean, you got a lot of good stuff there that you could monetize in that regard. As a business, do I really need to own some of those training modules, or is there an opportunity for a great university to take advantage of that and get more of my money and do a much better job than we probably could do, if not faster, for sure?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a real trend in higher education now, and hopefully I'm going to get to the heart of your question with this answer. If I don't, please direct me back. But there's a huge business of online educational management that's really exploded over the years. And we've started to take advantage of that, especially in executive education, because it's very difficult for us to run these executive education programs, because it really taxes the faculty, because the faculty actually have to do the teaching. And although these can be ways of bringing in more resources to the university, they're very taxing, and it's very difficult to sort of pull them off. But there's a huge market for them, and so, you know, you're leaving resources on the table if you don't take advantage. And so you can now hire these firms that will come in, do all the taping of the lectures, do all the back office work, do all the delivery systems, do all the admissions even, of course in coordination with the university. And then you split the proceeds going forward. And so we've taken advantage of that going forward, and that is a exploding market out there for businesses. And I think universities should take a deep look at that, especially in the area of continuing education and executive education. I think there's an opportunity. Make sure the quality's there, but some of the building up the infrastructure is very difficult and expensive. So,
Chairman, can I
Yes, please.
ask a question? I think when you talked about research, you talked about we're out of balance with NSF funding compared to NIH funding. We're low on NIH funding. And we've always we know we have a medical school, we have an engineering school. but we don't have a teaching hospital. And we've sort of felt, as we've gone through the years, that's a void that we have. We've started to make some great ways. I'll look at Dr. Camps, who's with Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, to make some great ways to do that. I mean, how can we really focus on NIH, biomedical science funding? So get back, you know, if we get what should be our share of NIH funding, we're at the $500 million level, which you sort of put as a threshold for moving forward in AAU and top 10. I mean, how exactly can we do that? And does it take a teaching hospital? We're not going to build a hospital, at least I don't think we're building a hospital anytime soon, but how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we do it at Harvard by partnering with our hospitals there. We don't own the hospitals. We don't own the employees at those hospitals. So Mass General Hospital, Brigham Women's Hospital, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Boston Children's Hospitals, they're Harvard-affiliated hospitals. And the faculty are called Harvard professors, and they're Harvard professors, but they're employees of whatever the hospitals where they are. But there's a lot of cross-fertilization and programs and collaboration between those physician scientists that work with Harvard people. And so there's a lot of programs that sort of we split the proceeds coming out. There's also some of those folks that we provide space for them. And so they sort of have a foot in both camps, if you will. So they'll have space at Harvard where they'll raise lots of NIH dollars, and then they'll have space at Dana-Farber where they'll raise a lot of, but the stuff coming into Harvard counts toward our research portfolios going forward. So I think that's a possibility. I mean, you have great hospitals locally. There's also great hospitals in the state. I think those kinds of partnerships make a lot of sense. I think building a teaching hospital, that would be a big endeavor. I'm not quite sure that's the right answer. But that's one way. And then there's just a lot of work that could be done just in the biological sciences, in computer science, chemistry. There's just areas like that where hiring in the area of life sciences in the disciplines of chemistry and physics and math, and especially computer science, because biomedical informatics and computational biology and data science applied to precision medicine and things like that, that is what is going on in the discipline, and I see that as a huge opportunity. I don't think you need a teaching hospital for that, so I think that's an opportunity that the university can really seize upon. And there's a lot of resources there. And then on the engineering side, if you'll allow me to say something about that, there's also an opportunity at the Department of Energy and Department of Defense. If you look at those numbers at the university, there's opportunity for movement there as well. You already have good, solid bones there. I mean, this is storied tradition in physics here. I mean, you go and read the names of the people that have been here and the magnet lab and things like that. There's a lot of opportunity to do more in that area. I don't know. Maybe there is. I mean, I'm not an expert on Florida State, but I would certainly assess that if I were to become president.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah,
You may.
I appreciate, the distance learning.
No.
But part of coming to college is developing collegiate life, college life. And had I not come here, I doubt that I would have my wife, for instance, of 39 years. And so what do you do or suggest to build, brand loyalty to the institution? Because that's something that I think, may be slipping a little bit. And how would you engage your students? How do you view that, if you will?
That's a great question. When I was at Carnegie Mellon, we had ignored our alumni for many years. I shouldn't say that. Ignored. We didn't do the appropriate thing with our alumni. We didn't really keep up with them and stuff like that. So it took a lot of work to go back and re-engage with the alumni going forward. I think there's a tremendous pride, as I said, about with the people that go to Florida State. I see that over and over. I think you have a base there to do something, but I think much more engagement. I would look at alumni relations and see if there's an opportunity to do much more engagement on the alumni relations side to get people involved. I mean, the one thing I learned at Harvard is they have an unbelievable alumni association, and they really engage people in a very strong way. That costs money, but that investment is really important to build that pride. And then on fundraising, I think there's opportunities, just as a student of Florida State, to do more in the area of fundraising. I think you have a lot of loyal alums that can be asked and to support for it. I think they want to. I think maybe there's an opportunity there. I mean, you're going to need, next president's going to have to look for a vice president for development, advancement. I think it's a tremendous opportunity to find somebody who knows how to build something like this as a grassroots organization, not an envelope opener, but someone who really goes out and engages people. So it's a great question, and it's incredibly important.
Thank you.
Mr. Iros?
Yeah, quick question. So number one, thank you for your interest in FSU. We're happy to have you here. And this isn't intended to be a softball question, but I'm actually interested in this, but it might be. It's a question about skill set. So provost versus president, right? And this is something I think we've, as a committee, have discussed and are trying to figure out as well. What skill set translates from being a provost to being a president, and maybe which things don't translate and where a provost may not make a good president, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a great question. In my position, I have a portfolio that's probably bigger than most provosts at almost every university in the United States. I mean, it's hard. It's very, very large. It's $1.24 billion in research, $400 million budget that I oversee. If you count boards that I'm on, where I have fiscal responsibility, it's a $650 million. It's a big, big portfolio going forward. I think the skill that I bring going forward, and I almost think that it's important to look at, not only the position the person holds, but the person themselves and the skill set that they have personally. When you're at a place like Harvard, it's a very decentralized university. Everybody is on their own. The schools don't necessarily work together. In some cases, there's financial disincentives for people to work together. And my job, which some people have described as the hardest at Harvard, is to bring all of those people together to build these new cross-university initiatives, which they've almost had zero of these in terms of big center-driven research initiatives until I came. And so the power of persuasion and building those, what I always call, universities are like small towns. You got to build your relationships with the right people. You got to know who the people you don't necessarily want to work with, and those you really want to work with, and those people that are the leaders you can really roll up your sleeves. And it doesn't matter who they are, their rank, could be students. It doesn't matter. You got to find those people that you can really work with. And I think that's the strongest skill I have, is building those trusted personal relationships with people. And it translates into everything. It will translate into fundraising, building corporate partnerships, raising research programs and dollars, working with the students. I mean, it's just all of those issues I think are important for the president to lead in that way. Not to be over in their office, but working with people directly. I think that's really important. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Dr. McCullough, we've got time for one more, but it's a special question. First, I'd like to ask you to take a look out into the future 5 years from now with your X-ray vision, and everybody that's a leader here that leaves their fingerprints all over the university in a great way. As you look out across the next 5 years, what do you see? Where are we under your leadership as president of Florida State? What are the accomplishments, and where are we along the way to our ultimate goals? And you can use this as a way of also giving us gives you an opportunity to close the conversation and share with us anything about your background or your thought process, or any comments about your relevancy to the candidacy.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Well, I see, if I were to become president of Florida State, I think in 5 years, I think I definitely see being an AAU university. I think that's an achievable goal in 5 years. I think there's no reason why you can't probably be in the top 15 among public universities. I think there's opportunities to go higher than that, but I don't, you're up against some pretty tough competition once you start getting close to that 10 range. And so, but it'd be my goal to get to 10 or actually 7. But in any event, I think that's an opportunity going forward. $500 million in research funding, I think, is a goal within 5 years that the university could reach. I don't see that there's any reason that couldn't happen. I look at other universities that have been on the rise, and they've been able to achieve that. It's a bit easier when you're starting from from 250 million going up. So I think that's a possibility. I would love to be able to impact graduation rates, to improve them. Maybe 5 points, that's a tough one, but given the challenges there, continue to drive up the SATs and class size. I think all of these kinds of fundraising, the percent of alumni giving and things like that, those are all metrics that are important in your undergraduate rankings going forward. It's not just a trick, but it also makes a difference in the quality of the institution. So I see those as possibilities. I know that the vision for the university is to be one of the most innovative, entrepreneurial universities around, and I think I bring unique skills to that. I've built an innovation ecosystem at Carnegie Mellon, and I've lead entrepreneurship at Harvard going forward, and it's made a tremendous difference. I see that as a unique possibility to increase the number of startups, student-based startups and faculty-based startups going forward, to make it part of the culture. Part of what I did at Carnegie Mellon and at Harvard is to go around and talk to the faculty and say, why don't you start a company? It's not as hard as you think. If I did it, you can easily do it, and that was usually a very powerful argument from my colleagues. It really made a difference. Chemistry department, I was the first one to start a company in the chemistry department, and I think they probably started 10 companies since I was there. And again, I think that just making sure the policies are right. I'm an expert in conflict of interest, so I know that's not an issue. And I know how to sort of promote that going forward. Student entrepreneurship is something that you can really drive, and students want it, but you have to provide an outlet for them to do it. They're 100 times smarter than we are, and they have the most innovative ideas. It's just astounding, some of the things that are going on. And looking at some of the things going on at Florida State, some of the companies coming out of your, innovation challenge, it's pretty remarkable stuff. You want to build interdisciplinary programs here. I don't think you're going to find too many people that have as much experience as me. I have 20 plus years experience building successful research and education programs at 2 AAU universities. So I think that's important. I would love to see Florida State lead in diversity. You already have a lot of great things going on. You graduate some of one of the largest numbers of PhDs in engineering and underrepresented minorities. Your partnership with Florida A&M and stuff. That's an area. Wouldn't it be great if you could be, in the top 5 in that area? To continue focus on building those programs. Your CARES program is, I wish I would have created the CARES program. That is an amazing program and so incredibly inspiring. So if I could just be here to be a part of that would be really, really great. But I think the most important thing is that, of the vision that Florida State has for itself, and if I were, elected president and came here, the vision and priorities and investments that we would make and the programs that we could build together, again, it's all about the students. It's all really about the students going forward. Faculty, of course, too, but, we do it for the students, and that's really what it's all about. And to be a part of that, to help in a public university, takes me back to where I started. And to give back is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm really excited to be, if you were to ask me to be your president, I would be incredibly excited. I really want to do this. I really do. And I'm profoundly honored to be even considered. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here and your time. And I've really enjoyed meeting you over the past several weeks, and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Let's see, 2:30, we don't need a break. We don't need a break, do we? Short break. Short break.